Welcome to today's Explainer. All right, let's just dive right in. Today, we're unpacking one of the most meticulously planned yet ultimately flawed murder conspiracies in American history. We're looking at the absolutely tragic 1997 murder of Sheila Bellush, a loving mother from Sarasota, Florida. What starts as this horrifying local crime scene quickly spirals into a massive, multi-state federal manhunt. And we're going to look at exactly how investigators pieced together this giant puzzle and how a single, honestly kind of bizarre clue unraveled the entire conspiracy.
To really get this case, we have to start right at the emotional core. Think about FBI Special Agent Michael Appleby. This is a guy who had been an agent for over 30 years. He viewed his work as a strict business, just doing the job. But the horrific nature of this crime scene in Sarasota, it had a profound impact on veteran investigators just like him. It became deeply personal, because they were dealing with a mastermind who literally wanted to destroy a young mother physically and emotionally, and the devastation left behind was just truly unfathomable.
Now keep the number 23 in your mind. That's 23 months, barely under 2 years old. That is the age of Sheila's quadruplets. On November 7, 1997, Sheila's 13-year-old daughter, Stevie, came home from school totally excited to tell her mom about a boy. But instead, she walked through the front door to find her 4 toddler siblings just wandering the hallway, crying. They were completely unharmed, thank goodness, but they were covered in their mother's blood. The tiny, bloody footprints tracked all around the house made it agonizingly clear that these 23-month-old babies had witnessed the entire brutal attack.
Section 1. A gruesome discovery. Let's break down the chilling details of the physical evidence, which really tells the story of the incredible fight Sheila put up to protect her kids.
Tracing the timeline of that terrible Friday, it's clear the attacker had just parked and waited. He slipped into the home through an open laundry room door, right after Sheila returned from dropping her older daughters at school. Now, Sheila weighed barely 100 pounds, but man, her motherly instincts totally kicked in. She was shot in the face with a .45 caliber pistol, a shot that went right through her cheekbone, and then her throat was slashed twice with a kitchen knife. Yet somehow she found the strength to fight back. She sustained defensive wounds and even managed to crawl 15 feet to the kitchen counter, reaching for the phone before she finally collapsed. She literally fought until her very last breath.
Now, there were absolutely no signs of forced entry. No broken windows, no pried locks. But the attacker made a really sloppy exit. They left behind 3 critical pieces of physical evidence. First, a .45 caliber shell casing. Second, the actual kitchen knife used in the attack, just left right there on the floor. And crucially, a latent fingerprint developed on the dryer in the utility room. But as you probably know, at this stage of an investigation, a fingerprint without a suspect to match it to is just a dead end.
That brings us to Section 2, Dead Ends and New Leads. Working from the inside out, which is standard procedure since, 2 out of 3 violent crimes against women are committed by someone they know, detectives immediately started looking at the men in Sheila's life. But law enforcement systematically hit dead ends. First, they looked at her current husband, Jamie, especially after finding out he had life insurance policies on her. But Jamie had rock-solid receipts and witnesses from his sales route. Alibi cleared. Next, they looked at a former pool maintenance man who had really made the family uneasy in the past, but he willingly provided DNA and was entirely ruled out. Finally, they looked at her notoriously difficult ex-husband, Alan Blackthorne. They had been in this bitter 10-year custody battle, but Alan was verified to be over 1,000 miles away in San Antonio, Texas at the exact time of the murder, so they were basically back at square one.
Then, the turning point of the entire case hinged on a truly bizarre phrase, "Yes, Bob and 62 girls." Right when things were looking totally cold, investigators were knocking on neighbors' doors, and a local gardener named Jake Mast provided a massive breakthrough. He told them he had spotted a highly suspicious man wearing camouflage pants driving a white Mitsubishi Eclipse. The guy just looked completely out of place. Mast was actually so unnerved by it that he memorized the car's license plate, YBR62G, using that exact, very unusual mnemonic device.
Section 3. The Texas Connection. Let's see how this single string of letters and numbers completely blew the case wide open, shifting this from a local murder investigation into a massive, multi-state federal manhunt.
So first step, the Florida DMV. It yielded 0 results for that plate. Nothing. But investigators remembered that Sheila had just moved from San Antonio 6 weeks prior, so they decided to run the plate through the Texas Rangers database. It's just an incredible example of the power of cross-referencing, because they hit the jackpot. The plate was registered to a white Mitsubishi Eclipse driven by a 23-year-old small-time criminal named Joey Del Toro.
Police tracked down Del Toro's abandoned car over in San Antonio, and inside was an absolute treasure trove of evidence. We're talking camouflage pants covered in tiny blood spatters matching Sheila's DNA, a physical map leading directly to her Sarasota home, a .45 caliber pistol that ballistics perfectly matched to the crime scene, and best of all, a fingerprint on the trigger that matched the latent print left on the dryer. The evidence inside decisively proved Joey Del Toro was the triggerman, but it raised one glaring question.
Section 4. Unraveling the conspiracy. Why did a 23-year-old from Texas drive all the way down to Florida to brutally attack a stay-at-home mom he had literally never even met? Let's unravel the plot.
Fascinatingly, the conspiracy actually began to unravel backwards. Police couldn't find Del Toro at first, but they did find his cousin, Sammy Gonzalez, who worked at a local golf course. And Sammy crumbled during interrogation. He confessed that a golf course bookie named Danny Rasha had approached him with a picture of Sheila, claiming she was a bad mother who needed to be beaten up. Sammy didn't really want to hurt a woman, so he passed the job to his cousin, Joey Del Toro, who gladly accepted $10,000 in cold hard cash. And as the plot rolled on, the order escalated from a simple beating to an outright murder.
But they still needed the actual triggerman to connect the final dots. Del Toro had fled to Mexico, and because he was facing the death penalty, Mexican authorities were pretty reluctant to send him back. This is exactly where the FBI stepped in to apply some heavy federal pressure. They successfully extradited Del Toro, and once he was back in the U.S., he confessed. But here's the kicker. He pointed the finger at a terrifying mastermind pulling all the strings from way above the bookie, Danny Rasha. Del Toro claimed he was terrified that if he didn't complete the hit, his own family would be in danger.
Section 5. Unmasking the mastermind. It's time to look at the man at the very top of this murderous hierarchy, Sheila's ex-husband, Alan Blackthorne.
Investigators uncovered this terrifying duality in Alan Blackthorne. On the surface, he was this smooth-talking, $40 million businessman who played country club golf. But underneath, the investigation revealed a highly manipulative, sociopathic abuser. He had subjected Sheila to bizarre sexual rituals, including cross-dressing games, and he strictly controlled her every move, even going as far as denying her food just to control her weight. After she finally managed to divorce him, he just couldn't stand losing. He battled her for custody for 10 grueling years, making up fictitious abuse claims. He wanted total control, and when she fled to Florida to escape, he ordered the hit, promising to fund Danny Rocha's sports bar in exchange for the murder.
Now, even though everyone basically knew Blackthorne was behind it, he flaunted his notoriety. He acted completely untouchable. But the FBI utilized a relatively new statute, interstate travel to commit domestic violence. Because the plot was hatched in Texas and carried out in Florida, it became a federal crime. They arrested Blackthorne right on a golf course on January 5, 2000. And when they raided his mansion, they found the absolute smoking gun, a computer-printed map finder guide to Sarasota, and a strip of photos of Sheila, where the exact picture used by the hitman to identify her had literally been cut out.
Section 6. The final judgments. With the mastermind finally unmasked and the physical evidence firmly in hand, let's take a look at how the justice system handled this intricate web of conspirators. The sentencings fell just like dominoes. Sammy Gonzalez, the middleman who confessed early, received 17 years. Danny Rasha, the coordinator, was sentenced to life in prison. Joey Del Toro, the triggerman, pleaded guilty to first-degree murder. And finally, the arrogant mastermind who genuinely thought he could buy his way out of anything, Alan Blackthorne, was given the surprise of his life by a federal jury. He got 2 concurrent life sentences with absolutely no chance of parole.
Yet, as comprehensively as the justice system dismantled this entire conspiracy, we are left with a pretty stark reminder of a profound, irreplaceable loss. The sheer brutality of orchestrating such a horrific act right in front of innocent children leaves a scar that no courtroom victory can ever erase.
We want to leave you with this final thought to reflect on today. As we've mapped out the incredible police work that solved this case, we really have to ask, can a life sentence ever truly balance the scales for a mother brutally murdered in front of her children? It's a devastating reality of extreme domestic control, and it really raises the question of whether the justice system can ever truly repair the damage done. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope it gave you a really clear understanding of the incredible complexities behind this tragic case.